All right, good evening, everyone. Okay, welcome to today's session. So we'll get started. As usual, I'll run through the markets over here, and of course, highlight some of the opportunities available as we progress. Okay, so first thing off, let's start off with the dollar index. Okay, so dollar index here, as from last week going into this week here, we are kind of looking at the possibility where price would do a nice little reaction of the 618 Fibonacci. Okay, which we are exactly seeing that at this moment. We did get an impulsive bounce to the upside. So this one here, it's in line with our expectation, and I would say, this week here moving forward, we'll be very much expecting more upside. Hey, for price to just complete, just a very, very conservative expectation, a true wave move. All right. So something like this, it may actually even possible that this would break the channel impulsively. Of course, if that's going to be the case, the label here will need to be updated, right? Instead of a simple WXY, we can then see a potential 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the upside, right? But for now, we're just going to be a conservative expectation of a true wave move, right? So we can expect price to come back somewhere towards 99.50 zone, right, for the dollar index. Hey, so we're bullish for the week. If you kind of look into the euro, okay, very nice little push to the downside as well. I think last week, I did post the view on this as well, on my Insta. Okay, I'm kind of expecting that, and I'm personally just waiting for an impulsive move to confirm the bearish bias. Okay, and we did get this today. Okay, so what this means is, of course, moving forward for this week, very likely we'll have a setup in place, right? In fact, if I were to just bring you to the hourly now, right? Okay, you can already start to see that the we have the conditions fulfilled for a setup, right? We have the break of structure. I'm sorry, we have the liquidity sweep at the top with the break of structure here. This is definitely an impulsive move, leaving behind, fair value gaps confirmation. What we need is just simply a pullback, and then we can look for the sell. Okay. But of course, it's not going to be likely something we look at today. We just got the impulsive move today, so the setup earliest we would expect perhaps is sometime towards tomorrow, right? So you probably see this in tomorrow's email, as well as going into maybe on Wednesday itself. Okay. So again, very, very simple expectation over here. We expect this to just come down, complete the true wave move. So we are looking at a potential bullish pullback in a way. But of course, if price continue to move lower aggressively with momentum, breaking the channel structure, then that opens up more downside potential. Right. So euro dollar definitely in my watch list, especially after today's impulsive move. Going forward, that's definitely an opportunity to keep an eye on. Right. GBP USD is kind of similar as well in terms of the bias here. Very nice little impulsive reaction of the 50% mark. Okay, so any sort of a pullback would naturally open up the sell trade opportunities as well set up, right? So this one here is going to be very, very similar to the euro in terms of the setup. We're likely going to look into the opportunities for the week. And nothing surprising, right? Because euro dollar and the pound dollar, they have the dollar in it. They are the major pairs. The correlation is there. Just one thing to note, obviously, you don't want to be taking both trades concurrently. If you are, you need to then factor in your risk exposure. GBP USD, to be honest, if two of these setups concurrently occur, I would personally focus a little bit more on the euro as compared to the pound, simply because the euro, in the context of things, we have the liquidity sweep at the top, but GBP USD over here, it's something where we're looking more of a continuation after the 50% rejection. But I'm also aware that, this can actually pull back deeper to break this high before another move down, right? To give us that complete of a true wave move as well. Right. So among these two, if both setups concurrently occur, I would personally choose the euro dollar. Okay. So just something to note. We'll see how things develop from here on. Okay. Then we have the Aussie, right? So Aussie actually came down a little bit impulsive earlier today. Again, that's potentially because of the dollar move. We're currently reacting off the 50 and the 618 zone. Okay, now we are in this trade. For this trade to be valid, we'll definitely want to see some aggressive bounce back up. Okay, so one thing to note, if let's say price were to just pull back correctively, okay, going into tomorrow, right? If price is just gonna react off the 618 and start to bounce off correctively, then it's an opportunity to actually get out of this particular trade, either a break even or even maybe a little bit of profits, and then that's it, right? We'll look for the next opportunity. However, if let's say tomorrow morning, we come in, we see that price actually reject this level off impulsively, right? It's some sort of a V shape. Then the odds of this trade continue to go higher is going to be there. Okay, so this is the part of management of trade, right? So after we get in, after the trade got triggered, how price is going to react is going to continue to leave clues in terms of how we want to manage it. Okay, so very quickly, if you look at this structure here, it's pretty clean, pretty straightforward. We're looking at this as a W, tree of move, 1, 2, 3, right? So that's a simple expectation. On the hourly, we have this trade here. Okay, so again, we don't really have a liquidity sweep, but we have a very clean break of structure. The failure gap is pretty small, but it's still there, right? And the setup is basically quite straightforward, right? So as long as price remains above the invalidation level, which is the swing low, we're going to look at how this is going to react off, right? As I mentioned, if price is going to push back up impulsively, the odds of this trade moving in our favor is going to be there. I'm going to leave that trade as it is. However, if tomorrow morning I come in and then price is basically just doing something like that, very corrective kind of development, I'll probably just take this trade out at break even. Okay, or even, if there's small profits, I'll just exit as it is. And then I'll just look for the next one, right? Because I don't really like an impulsive drop and then the price do correctively. The odds of this coming down, it's there. Okay, so that's part of the trade management to look out for. Okay, so that's on the Aussie dollar, one of the trades that we are in right now. Okay, dollar CAD, very nice little reaction off the bottom of the channel as well. I think this one we'll be looking at it since last week. Okay, so moving forward, any sort of a corrective pullback would give us a buy trade opportunity, right? We have that V-shaped formation, very nice. So very similar to the euro as well as the pound dollar. Okay, this might set up this week as well. Definitely in my watch list. We just want to wait for the pullback. We'll go down to lower time frame and look for the setup itself. Okay, so just bear in mind, we have a couple of potential trades that are kind of correlated because of the dollar direction. So just bear that in mind as you are looking for trade setups and opportunities for the week as well. Okay, so pretty straightforward in dollar Canadian, right? Corrective pullback, expect to push back up as a bigger channel structure completes. Dollar yen here as well, very straightforward. We have that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pullback, nice little reaction of the 50%. Very decent bounce as well. So any sort of a corrective pullback will give us that opportunity to look for further upside. Okay, so very similar to the dollar CAD, right? Majority of this major pairs here, we're basically looking at dollar strength for the week. All good, very straightforward, right? I think last week a lot of all this are at the crossroad, right? Meaning last week when we look at things, a lot of all these instruments prices are basically testing the key level, right? And then as of late last week, a lot of reaction has been done. That's where it gives us that clarity going into this week in terms of the directional bias that we want to focus on. Okay, so if you kind of look at, from a week-to-week basis, last week, at the start of last week, we can't cover, a lot of this. We want to see how price react because they are a key level or POI, point of interest. And then as the week progressed last week, we start to gain more clarity, right? So that's the phases based on the framework that I trade, right? When price comes into POI, be patient. We want to see how price react. As we get the reaction that we expect, then it goes into the phase where we are starting to look out for opportunities to get involved in it, right? Because the direction becomes clearer. We just then need to move to the next phase of looking for the setup, looking for the conditions that we can actually execute our trade. All right, so that's where you can see from week to week progress. Okay. Yeah, so if you need to kind of like do a little bit of revision, you know, in terms of like what we talked about last session, all the recordings are obviously up on YouTube. You know, you can go back to last week's live recording, and look back, right? So hopefully that also provides you a library of resources that you can study. Okay. Yeah, so that's on that. Then we have gold. Gold currently is reacting off the 50 and 618, right? I mean, not reacting, but we're currently trading in that zone. Exactly the point that I mentioned. It's at the point of interest, it's at a key area. You just want to be patient right now, right? And see how price is going to react off this level. One or two things are likely going to happen. Price is either going to correct or pull back correctively. If that's going to be the case, we can expect further downside, right? So then that will be a simple WXY. We can expect the market to come back and retest this low. Alternatively, okay, price made a V shape back up, then we can expect more upside. Okay. Again, it's not something very, very complex. Sometimes about trading is just being patient, right? The tough thing is oftentimes traders are too eager to get involved in a trade, where they should be just sitting out and let price do itself, right? Develop into something clearer that we can look into, right? So for gold here, to be honest, at least for the first part of the week, we'll probably just want to observe how price is going to react off this level right now. Okay, so you don't want to be rushing into things for gold. Okay, silver is a little bit different. Silver right now here, we are looking at a possibility where this can be an expanding structure. Okay, so short term, if you can get a corrective pullback, we can look at sell trade setups. Okay, so the idea of this, you can see that we have broke the top. Okay, and then price kind of come down impulsively. So on the lower time frame, okay, on the H1, that's something that we can look into, right? So in fact, this is actually one of the pending trades that I have. If price were to pull back correctively towards the key level, or I'll say the entry zone, that will be a valid sell trade, right? Because we have that liquidity sweep, we have the change character, we have that momentum move. All conditions are there. Okay, and then of course the alignment here on the high time frame is that we are expecting this developing as an expanding flat, right? We're not looking at like major reversal to the downside. We're simply looking at this short-term pullback, right, to retest where that swing low is. That's the entire trade idea plan itself. All right. So that's on silver, right? Pretty straightforward on this. Then we have crude oil. Crude oil, I'm gonna just maintain neutral right now. You can see price is basically still testing around that zone. It's in the range. There's no clear direction at this moment, so yeah, probably not gonna spend too much time on that. S&P continue to push higher, so definitely bullish bias. But again, you know, I don't want to be buying at the top. As a trader, right? Today, if you're looking at investment, you know, the equities market has been doing pretty well. I'm not actively trading into the equities market, but I do have portfolios designed more of an investment point of view on the stock side of things, right? Yeah, so this one here, probably for S&P index specifically, we're not going to focus too much on it. If we are going to buy, we always want to wait for the pullback first, right? So nothing much on this. Okay, pound yen. Very good example on price pattern, right? I always say you want to observe how price is developing. You can see that we had a nice little reaction of the 50, but this reaction is very corrective, right? So that is the part where if this is very corrective, there is a good chance price will actually come back down first, maybe retest the 618 before the bounce up. Okay, because if this is a decent reaction, it should go impulsively, but we did not get that. Okay, so the expectation of the JPY over here is that we expect price to come back down, maybe lower towards the 618 and then only bounce, right? What this means to us is that yes, we're bullish. The overall structure here is impulse correction, right? We're expecting upside, but based on the context of this development, we will be patient and we will expect price to come down, retest first, wait for another bounce, lower time frame, look for the setup to buy. Okay. Yeah, so this is also a good example of the element of context, right? The directional bias is there. There might be a setup, but based on the context of how price is developing, I will be more cautious on the buy side of things, right? So I'll be patient. I'll wait for price to make another dip before I'm gonna look for any setup to get involved in the trade. Okay, so that's on GBPJPY. Then we have the Aussie yen. Okay, so I see here Marvin asked about gold. I think we cover on that. Rafael is asking about Aussie yen, so we're covering on that as well, right? So Aussie yen, that's a clear bias, right? We are looking at bullish bias as long as price remains above that invalidation level. We do see price completed a very nice WXY structure as well. Made a bounce up, break that high. But one thing I'm a little bit careful here is that this break is not really impulsive, right? In other words, if I would want to buy, I would want to see definitely some sort of a corrective pullback. Okay, we don't want to see an impulsive pullback, right? If it's an impulsive pullback, what it suggests is that there's a good chance the market is doing a bigger channel structure, which means this is 1, this is 2, and then this is 3. Okay, which would then break this low. Okay. Okay, so that's the take on the odd yen. Okay. Yeah, so for me, definitely something to look out for this week. But just as I mentioned, I'll just be a little bit careful and be patient in terms of like really waiting and see how price is going to develop before kind of committing to it, right? So it's definitely in my watch list, but I would love to see more commitment and confirmation from the market when we see a corrective pullback, right? So again, today is Monday, we'll just be patient and see how things roll from here. Okay. Pound odd, we managed to break the low, but you can see here the trade plan is really to give time for the market to see how it develops first, right? If you scroll out a little bit more, it's really something that is not the clearest of all. We can see that yes, we break the low, but there's no confirmation after breaking, right? So we kind of see a little bit of bounce, a little bit of break, and then break again, and then bounce back up. I'll just stay away from this for now, right? Until price gives us a very clean structure and direction, then I'll come back, right? But for now, this one I'll just put it aside. Okay, last in the list I have in terms of the things I'm looking at, this BTC. Okay, we have a very nice little clean structure here. Okay, we'll see how things go from here, but definitely bullish, right? The thing here is very, very similar to the pound yen. Is this all it is, or is this gonna give another dip before another bounce? Time will tell. Okay, we'll basically just want to wait for this. Okay, yeah. All good. Okay, so those are the things that I think is worth looking into. Okay, I've very quickly I see some requests on certain analysis. For example, Euro Yen, right, from Dylan. Let's take a quick look at that. Okay, price is definitely moving higher. But I would be a little bit cautious, right? Seems a little bit overextended, and there's a good possibility we'll see some sort of a meaningful pullback. Okay, so personal take here is short term, at least for this week. Okay, you can look at window of opportunities to trade it to the downside as a pullback trade, right? We have this as a liquidity sweep, but of course, if price take out this low with momentum, leaving behind some sort of a fair value gap, then that's great, right? Because the pullback here would give you the opportunity to sell it. Okay, so I would personally look out for that. All right, but of course, you need to wait for confirmation from the market, not just selling it immediately, right? So instead of like looking for buy this week, while the momentum is definitely there, I would say while the direction is definitely to the upside, the trend is there. In terms of within the week itself, opportunity that I would look out for to capitalize on Euro Yen with more of a trade the sell, right? Trade a pullback. Okay. Euro Canadian and Euro AUD. I think I'll talk about the Euro AUD first because I think this one you may have something, right? I don't trade the Euro AUD, but I think this was covered sometime last week or so. Okay. Again, you can see the setup playing out very nicely, right? This would have been a pit perfect entry. Okay, but of course, if you are in, then that's where you want to shift your stops, through your stops accordingly, right? So Euro AUD here, I would say there is the downside. Nothing much has shift. But you just want to be aware that this downside can simply just be a simple kind of three-wave pullback, right? It may not be a trend reversal. It may simply just be something like that, right? So obviously you can look for extended targets here. You can of course aim for all the way here if you want to. Okay, but that's my take on Euro AUD, right? You can see the structure is very clean. Okay, upside here, and then we're expecting a simple pullback. Okay, so not sure who asked about Euro AUD last week, but basically if you're in this trade, perfect, right? You can just continue to look out for the downside here. Okay, then we have Euro Canadian, right? Okay, Euro Canadian did not really come down towards that level, but you can see Euro CAD here essentially did its three-wave move. Okay, it did a bounce to the upside here as well. Let me just very quickly check. It did react off this high. Okay, kind of break it off a little bit and then impulsive like that. So this one here, what you can expect is pretty similar to silver. Okay, pretty similar to silver where we can expect a bigger tree wave that looks something like that, right? 1, 2, 3, right? In Elliott wave, we either call it more or less a regular flat, because this is pretty much there. Didn't really break a lot, so you know, kind of a regular flat structure, right? So short term, you can look out for EuroCAD here is potentially to the downside. Okay, so something like this. All right, so yeah, that's the analysis that I have for some of these pairs here that you guys have requested. Yeah, so in short, right, in general, definitely some key opportunities to look out for. Okay, for me here, you can see some of the highlighted ones, right? Of course, the major pairs, euro, pound, dollar CAD, dollar yen, they are all there, right? It's really waiting for the setup to occur. Okay, then we can look into the trade itself. I think by tomorrow, Wednesday, there might be something. And then, of course, another one to look out for is silver and the AUD yen, right? So these are a few things that you can look out for this week, okay? And I feel that there might be a lot of opportunities building in. So bear that in mind and factor in your total risk exposure as well. All good? Okay. Yeah, so generally that's what I have for this week. Okay, so all the best. And as usual, you know, I'll keep you guys updated through the daily emails, and I'll see you guys in the next week. Okay, all the best. See you guys.